Hello, hello, hello. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Mele Kalikimaka, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 27 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Claire Rowley, and I hope that you are ready for Christmas or whichever holiday you celebrate, and that you're grateful for the year that you have lived through and looking forward to 2024. As I am so grateful for all of you. I cut my lining pieces too small yesterday when I got ready to do this, and I was like, I'm so ahead of things. So, well, you know, that's what happens sometimes. So what I did yesterday is I actually quilted already the two halves of a stocking so that today will go a little bit more efficiently. My cords are a little tangled up. Let's see here. Oh, that's a little too bright, I think. Let's see. Why are you seeing things so bright? Maybe I can turn my light down a little bit on the sewing machine. There we go. So I did this swirly design, and I am gonna quilt that. I used this metallic thread for it, and I drew with the needle all the way around the design. So you can draw over your pattern design and not cut. And use your foot. You can use the satin edge foot and go around the line, or free motion it, which is what I did here. So I'll start by showing you a little quilting, and since I already have them done, I don't need to finish what I do today, so I can be more efficient. As today, I feel the need for a little bit of rest. And my eyes are really tired over the last couple of days. I think it's because I'm not sleeping enough. This is the pattern that is in the VIP group. So if you are inside of Create with Claire Rowley and you're a VIP and you got the email today, this is the pattern. And it isn't complete with all the steps because I'm going to use today's video to help me complete the instructions. So for those of you who want the pattern, I really tried hard to get it before Christmas for everyone to buy on creativefeet.com, but was unable to get it finished. So as soon as I can get that uploaded and available for sale on my site and for download, I will let you know. Inside the pattern, you get a full-size pattern for this giant stocking. And you also get a smaller stocking, which is a great place to start. So say you want to make some for your dog or your cat. They don't need a giant stocking, or maybe they do. So hello, Susan and Brenda and Crazy Crafting from Oregon. Welcome. And Amy Better Days, Roxanne, Binbo. I hope I'm saying that right or correctly. If you're watching from Instagram, will you let me know? Because it's a new thing and I don't know if I got it set up right or not. I'm using for the cuff a fur minky, not as furry as the stockings that I monogrammed 2 weeks ago or a week ago or so. So if you want to learn how to monogram your stocking and it's already sewn together, be sure to look in the link below this video after the live is over. Or just search stocking inside of my YouTube channel and you should find the video on how to do that. Cut out your cuff first. This will be the first part of the sewing process, but before we sew, I'm going to free motion quilt using the Octi hoops. Another product that we're going to use today is Fuse and Fuse for the applique, and I'm going to applique and embellish at the same time. So I should come up with a new name for it, maybe Embellish. What do you think? Got a good name for appliquing while you embellish at the same time? If you do, put it in the comments. I would love to know what you come up with. That is a challenge that I have, coming up with cute names for things. It's also easier to free motion quilt something that is small in shape like this on a bigger piece of batting and a bigger piece of fabric. So before you actually cut out and make them even this size, I recommend perhaps having it be like a 1/2 yard size and draw the stocking outline on the fabric so you know where you're going to quilt. And then after you've done all the quilting and you've stitched around the design and know your outer limits, then you cut it out so that you're not struggling trying to stitch right around the edge. So this is smaller than I would recommend you do. And of course, I'm always showing you how to accomplish something if you do it incorrectly. Let's see how this looks now. Why isn't my transition button working? There we go. That is, I think, maybe a little too close. What do you think? Try not to make you dizzy. This is so bright. I think a setting got messed up, so I'm going to transition the camera and mess with it. This is one of the things I'm going to use to applique with. These are pearls, and this is rat tail cording. The rat tail cording size here is a little bit smaller than a 2mm, and this is the actual most common size that you'll find, which is an actual 2mm. Using a contrasting color of thread when appliquing with this, it adds a really nice look to any project that you're doing. I'm trying not to say the word doing, and now every time I say it, it stops my thought process. So I would love to hear any questions that you might have right now, as I am going to go into my settings really quick and fix the webcam because it's way too harsh. And I'm not sure how that happened. The computer gremlins were at work, I suppose. Let's see here. Maybe it doesn't like the color red. It's interesting that cameras have trouble with some colors, and if I remember correctly, that is one of the colors it has trouble with. Now if I could just see far away. Input, device settings. Let's go back. Cameras. Here we go. Yeah, the brightness got made really bright. So I'm going to test that and see how it looks. Now it's a little too dark, and what is that weird color look? What happened? Looks like it has too much saturation. Ooh, now it has too little. So this is camera setting on the fly. Come on, camera, catch up. My hand looks weird though. The color on this cat, maybe I should do it with this. Oh, that'd be better. We'll set it for the sewing machine. All right, so, worst case scenario is that I use my other close camera for this and reprimand this camera. For free motion quilting, I use the octi hoops, and they come 3 to a set, this being the largest one hanging on the wall. And they're kind of an odd shape if you haven't seen them before. They're absolutely fantastic for doing small projects like this. I actually made something that I shouldn't say because my friend might be watching, but I made something for my friend Terry last night, and before I left work. And I was able to do this on something that you wouldn't imagine being able to do free motion on without a stabilizer behind. So I'm thinking I need to teach it. Perhaps that will be the first video in 2024. As I will not be going live next week, probably. I might change my mind. I reserve the right to change my mind. So you can see I've drawn the line representing where the stocking is going to go. This thing is having trouble even focusing. I can't see where I'm supposed to be. Let me see. Nope, that didn't work. Where's my mouse? I just had the mouse. Oh, it's right there. Sorry, guys. For those of you who don't know me, I'm not usually this flaky. I can hear some of you guys thinking, oh, yes, she is. There we go. All right. Now I can see what I'm supposed to be seeing. The Fuse and Fuse stabilizer is what we use for applique, which will be the little patches that you see in black on here. And I've decided to use an upholstery fabric for this because I think it will look rich. And I was really impressed with how rich looking a regular piece of cotton fabric got just using metallic thread. And let's see, maybe you can get a better look at it now. How pretty it is in this camera. Let's see. Now, let's see on. It's so reflective, even though it's just cotton. That's probably what's causing it. And these are little balls of fuzz from the batting. Darn it, darn it, darn it. I'm going to try looking without you guys having to watch. See if I can't get this to look better by moving the camera around. If not, we will just... Maybe it's one of these light settings. How frustrating. It's not a perfect science yet, this live stuff. It's almost like it's trying to adapt to it, which it doesn't need to do. So, nope, still, no, I think I'm going to just pass on that right now. At least for the free motion aspect. When I dimmed it, it was better, but it was this camera that you're seeing. You weren't seeing the one that was bad. So, this is a swirly swirl design, kind of. I'm sure there's a name for it. You probably could use a little more light now that I'm on this camera. So what you do is you take and place with the batting beneath, and there's nothing holding this fabric onto this batting except for plain old ordinary static cling. And place the medium-sized frame beneath, and then the smaller frame goes on top and drops within the barrier of the frame beneath. And then your left hand or non-dominant hand, so if you were left-handed, you would hold it with the right. I'm right-handed, so I hold it with the left. I feel like I could use a little more light on the machine bed now. There we go. And this is a good opportunity for me to use my notepad, if I could find it. So I'm going to draw on a piece of paper to show you. If I can't find my notepad, I'll just use this paper, which is the pattern itself. And to practice before you actually quilt something, because you do hold onto what feels like a handle. It's a good idea to practice the movement of the frame or of the design that you're going to stitch before stitching on your fabric. I think I left one of these pins open. So the motion that I'm going to do, or the movement that I'm going to, how I'm going to move it is not my name. I'm writing my name. So you just go around like that. And I felt like it kind of felt like Santa Claus. These are not what they call wicking. This is just batting and the cuff fur just falling out. I did have a trouble with my sewing machine yesterday though, and I'm going to tell you why. So if it ever happens to you, you'll know the thought process that I went through to get my machine to operate properly again. I had this terrible eyelash look on the back side of one of them, which I don't know where it is. And what it does is your bobbin looks straight, and then the needle thread drops to the bottom and creates what looks like eyelashes on the back side. So the stitching doesn't have that straight line appearance. It has this, looks like a bunch of eyelashes are all over the bottom of your quilt, which doesn't matter if you're going to line it, but definitely makes you feel like you've failed in some way. What caused that was I had a piece of the metallic thread that broke off and somehow got inside of my bobbin case. So I opened up my bobbin case area and took out my bobbin case and brushed out and vacuumed out all of the lint that was in there because it'd been a while, and oiled the machine. And then it was good to go again. So you might not think that way. You might think first thread, and I did, rethreaded the machine, took out the bobbin, put it back in, and I noticed the bobbin tension was super tight. And that's because the thread that was down in there had got itself lodged in such a way that my other thread was like sitting with it in the tension discs, which are really small and tight together inside of the machine. I'm selecting a straight stitch and center needle position, which really doesn't matter that much if it's center needle position, but my brain likes it. I'm so sorry that other camera has decided not to serve us today. I'm going to peek at it one more time. I don't know. Let's see. Look at that. Maybe it just needed us to complain a little. A good place to start, because you're going to put a patch on this, is at the heel of the stocking. So you can get a hang of it, and you can, oh, so close. All right. So in this area is where I'm going to be applying my applique piece. Lower the presser foot, even though I don't have a foot on the machine. And that then closes the tension on the thread, and I take my needle thread down one number. So it's normal at 4, I'm taking it down to 3. And I have a, yeah, but it should be focusing better. Come on, baby. Focus here. Maybe we'll be able to afford another type of camera for this at some point. So I'm bringing this bobbin thread up. Can't see it at all. Don't have my glasses on. I have bobbin thread that matches the fabric, so can't see it. There we go. The bobbin thread I'm using is the Deco Bob 80 weight 100% polyester thread. And you don't have to start in the stocking. Generally, I would start outside of it and practice a little bit out here before you go onto the actual stocking. Kind of a pretty, oh, you can't see it at all. Let me just try a little more. Another angle maybe. Perhaps. I think I might have figured it out. You know what though, this thread with this camera, it looks like something's going wrong, but it isn't. It's just a unusual spool of thread that has little knobs of black running through it. So when you see what looks like a problem, it's actually just the design of the thread, which looks better when you're not on a camera. And this is the Robeson Anton metallic thread. There we go. In case you want to purchase some and use it. Color 1007 if you can make that out. Robeson Anton being an American thread line. And it was really great news is to hear that there's a new fabric company opened up in the United States. So we're starting to be back in textiles. So now I really do a much better job when I'm not talking, when I design on the, just kind of do stippling type designs, and that's what this is. This is a stippling pattern. So it's basically just bringing these points around, and you want to think about where you have to end up. Still to something. Darn it. Come on, camera. It doesn't like red color, I think. I'm giving up on that. I can't do that to you guys. So basically, I feel like I've seen this design before when we reference Santa Claus. So it's just a swirling little design, and then you can scoot up without having to worry about your design by simply going outside of the area, outside of the stocking line that you drew to know where your border is. How fast you move your hands based on the speed of the machine is how long your stitches will be. And that's really enough for me to show you right now, because I did just do a free motion lesson and we didn't have any problems with that camera on that one. And I've already got this done. The way that you sew this stocking together is really, really easy, and I think might surprise some of you. We got lights everywhere. You need to go, Roxanne? That's okay. Rosanna Benbow. This eye is all puffy. Can you tell? I was like, I don't know if I should even go live because they might think something's wrong with me. Now, how close you cut to the stocking will determine the seam allowance that you're going to use. And I did design this to incorporate the seam allowance in there. So I may not have done the wrong thing after all when I cut my lining. I'd like to not have to cut. And with the satin edge foot, we can do some unusual construction here. So I think I'm gonna my grammar is lacking today. All right, so top camera, and I'll show you what we're faced with here. It's a little stocking and my brain wants it bigger, so this I allowed for a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and on this I stitched around that line when I did the quilting, before I did the quilting, to show where the stocking will lay on there. And just because I can see that line doesn't mean that that I have to sew on the edge of this. So instead of using this as the edge of the fabric, I'm going to use that as the edge of the fabric. And I'm not going to sew with this side facing up so that I get distracted by it. However, I do want to make sure that these are lined up really well. And you can use clips for this, but I want to get these together first. I could have cut better. I could always cut better. Was it measure twice, cut once? Is a good rule of thumb. So it is a tendency I have to cut something bigger, and because you can always make it smaller, but you can never take something smaller and make it bigger. So that's probably where my brain was. So this is the edge that I'm going to use to sew on, and with the satin edge foot, which is what I'm going to use, it's going to be a lot easier than it would be with a traditional foot. Now these are right sides together, and you stack your lining, and in this situation there's nothing better than the liquid based to pin it all together. Because I want to make sure that these are together. Oh my goodness, I really destroyed the tip of this. I'm not sure how I did that. So this replaces pinning. Little dots, little slide your finger across, and I want to make sure that that is really precise. And here I cut poorly, which kind of acted like a dart. Wouldn't hurt to create a dart on your pattern, for those of you who have access to it today, so that you know. And I always do my darts going into the pattern rather than sticking out from the pattern. And a dart is used to mark a fabric. You can also use chalk lines or other pins to mark so that you know you're lined up. But having a gouge in the fabric makes it a lot easier because you can see both sides of the fabric that way. Come on, eyes. I don't think I have an eye infection, but I'm starting to question, which is very inconvenient because everything I do involves eyesight. You know what I mean? And then I'm going to position this fabric so that the lining lines up with the stitching line that I stitched on the batting or through the quilted object. So it can't slip. I didn't cut very well, but it's okay as long as the lining is within the outside of both sides of the quilted object, the stocking. It looks good, and I will show you what I'm talking about here. I'm almost too close right here. I'll move this mouse. All right, with that positioned well, these two layers are glued together already. Just place some on the fabric, and that'll keep that from moving. Even though the static electricity tends to keep it from moving, I definitely cut this a lot smaller than the other side. So I'll go ahead and glue the toe together so that it doesn't move, and why not also use a clip. Making sure that, how do I make sure that the other one is correct? You take a pin and you poke it through straight through from that edge. And if it's not poked through on this one, then I'll end up having an opening there that I don't want. So that looks good. And once again, this side hasn't been glued yet, so go ahead and pin this with the liquid base water soluble stabilizer in a bottle. You can see that is a lot faster than pinning once you get the hang of using it. And I know that I don't have any drops here. And go ahead and, again, especially on the curvy areas, just secure that lining to that. Also, because of the thickness of this fabric, it is likely that the lining fabrics will shift because this is so thick. Now the foot that I'm going to use is the satin edge foot. However, basically what you want to do is make sure you sew like a 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch in from that edge. My fingers have a bunch of the glue on it, and I don't want you to think I have dried skin. I had removed my machine's snap-on adapter. And this is it. And it attaches to my presser foot like that. This foot has several adapters to adapt to all sewing machines. So if you want to get one, what did I just do? I just damaged that needle. I'm trying to work around this camera, which if it's gonna work for part of this, it'll be good. See, now it looks great. So it just didn't like the red. Hello, clear skies. What's your name? I love your screen name. It's a beautiful, beautiful name. Okay, Claire, get yourself together. This is one of those times when I'm going to want to use a crutch. A crutch is what? What is a crutch? It's simply some fabric that's equal in thickness to what you're trying to sew on. And you put it, you can place it beside the foot, but you can also just have it help you start your stitching line. And I'm going to use a left needle position because that's how I achieve a 1/4 inch seam allowance, by moving the guide on the presser foot a 1/4 inch away based on using a measuring tape. So you can just lower your needle in the left needle position on one of those lines and then move the guide over. And it's already set for the 1/4 inch. So then you just turn the nut and it moves the wire on the foot. It moves this little guide pin that you see over by turning that. So you can stop this in any position you want. And use it also for top stitching, edge stitching, pin tucking, invisible applique, stitching in a ditch, charted needle designs without the use of knitting needles, cut work without the use of a hoop, wire edges, fishing line edges, lettuce edging, trapunto applique, blanket stitch applique, edge joining, t-shirt hemming, 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, cant 1/4 inch seam allowances, and a lot more, which is why The Creative Feet Extensive course that's going to be opening January 15th is so full of information. This is just one foot, and each of those techniques have many other uses. So in the Creative Feet Extensive, I'll be showing you all the different ways of doing each of the techniques that I just spoke of. I hope to see you in there. And for those of you who've been waiting as we went through a tremendously rough year, thank you for your patience, and I can't wait to get to know you even better than we already know each other in the course. So get ready, and here we go. I'm increasing my stitch length to a 4.0 stitch length. And why I'm doing that is that first, it moves easier. Also, releasing the amount of pressure that the foot applies on the fabric is helpful. This is set at the lightest pressure. If the foot were tipping to the side like this, then you could take and lower the needle, raise the foot, and slide this beneath. And then it acts like, as I said before, a crutch to keep the foot level while we sew on a thicker fabric. You can also use a piece of tape and tape it to that to keep the foot in position, but for some reason the fabric tends to just stay there without me holding it, and my hands are not over there. Watching right here, not the needle, but right there, making sure that the fabric stays to the side, or that the guide stays off the edge of the fabric. Now I do generally, whenever sewing an inside curve, shorten my stitch length. It's always better to have a shorter stitch length on a curve because you'll get a smoother curve. And in this instance, you could stop and lower your needle as well, lift the foot and tip it. However, I find that it's almost never really necessary, except for right now it is, because I am so discombobulated in my position, looking around this camera and all these lights and things in front of me, and I'm not sitting in front of the machine. This is the front of me. I'm sitting to the side of me, which is very bad for your lower back, and you should not do that. Don't do what I'm doing. Do what I tell you to do. If you lose your way, you can always lift the foot and turn, because the spacing isn't going to change from a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once again, keep your eye focused here. And you can always stop with the needle down, lift the foot, and move things. I need to remember that I've changed my stitch length to a shorter stitch length. When I go on the straights, it's also kind of nice to have an increased seam allowance or stitch length when you're doing something where you might want to rip it out again, because a longer stitch length is a lot easier to pick out, right? Hello, Ellen, welcome. Who else is in here? Oops, I didn't have my needle down. So if you ever pull the thread out or the fabric out and you have a loop of thread, you just pull the thread back toward the spool of thread, and then you should be able to pick up right where you left off and not have a big loop on the fabric. My foot control got away from me. There we go. I'm wearing boots because it's winter today, I believe. Or is it tomorrow? No, today is the official shortest day of the year, I think. Or is this actually the first day of winter? For those of you who thought we were already in winter. Looking at right here, not the needle. If you have pinking shears, they come in handy for something like this. I own a pair. I just have no idea where they are. Lower the needle. Lift the foot. Sorry for that banging the camera. If you have the ability to have your machine always stop with the needle down on the straight stitch, that's fine. On a zigzag stitch, I tend not to, so I honestly would have to figure out how to have my needle stop down. That's how little I have my needle stop in the lowered position, because you're more likely to have a stitch go where you don't want it. There's two lights that are not on. That's actually good. I think it's hiding the puffiness of this eye. You think today is that also known as the winter solstice? I don't know. I'm going to stitch off and come back on again. Have you ever stitched like this, stacking everything on top of it? It's such an ingenious idea, but generally I think it's just so unnerving that you might not have your seam allowance be accurate all the way around. And before cutting, I'm going to make sure that I have, in fact, caught all of it by putting my hand in there. And there's only a couple spots where I thought I might have missed. This is a skinnier than I like stocking. It's going to be interesting to sew the cuff on. You have done that before, Amy? All right, I think we're good to go. It was the toe that was a little iffy. It really isn't the lining that I'm concerned with, it's the stockings. My hand almost can't go down there. So just do a better job at measuring. And because this pattern is in the design phase, Amy, if you're going to make this small one, add a little bit of a seam allowance to it. Ignore that inside line. I think it'll be better to have a little wider, but then you'll have to compensate on the cuff and make that as well larger. So before I turn this right side out, now I'm going to go ahead and cut around. And using pinking shears would make this a lot easier. You can also cut into your curved areas. Making little triangular cuts like that. Notice that I'm not cutting all the way. I'm not closing the scissor. I'm keeping it back here in the heavy, strong part of the shears. And these are shears. I'm also avoiding that stitching line just in case I have to sew a little more. That might do it. A little bit here. And then, of course, around the toe as well. The toe doesn't have to have the triangles cut out. You just want to cut around like that. Grab the toe and pull it out. And then I have tube turners and all kinds of gadgets for this. Now I take this and push out the toe. Yeah, it's a little bit small, but I was just trying really hard to give you something for today, you VIPs. I think if nothing else, this is going to be a cute little decoration. I also thought this would be a fun way to give someone a bottle of wine. You deliver it in a stocking. Because, I don't know about you, I always feel like it would be nice to give them a wrapping that is reusable, something that they will enjoy using. And if you go through my Fabrically Speaking Live episodes, you will find one where I did create wrapping from fabric so that they can use it again and again. We have a little sock. And now for Now I'm going, oh no, I didn't applique. We'll do it on this. Thank goodness I have 2 stockings. So one will not have that patching. But I may as well finish it. It's still going to be cute, and there's no way I don't need it, or I would have gone through the trouble. This half is already quilted, so I'm going to show you how we patch. And remember, the pattern is this one, not this small. So, but you get the bonus, and I'll probably make it a little bit better. You guys ready for Christmas? On the pattern, we have the patches, and you trace it using the iron-on fusible double-sided applique stabilizer, and the one we offer is the one I showed earlier, which is our fabric hold. Our fuse and fuse. It's also easier to use your Caterpillar light tablet. And speaking of the light tablets, we have the prices are going to be going up very soon. I'm not ready for Christmas either. However, I am planning to be by tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Lighting up the Caterpillar light tablet, and this is the ultra size. I would normally not use the lined mat that comes with the board for applique because it distracts. I don't know where my not lined mat is right now, which they call the edge-to-edge mat. You're going to need 2 of these patches, one facing one way, one facing the other. And I was thinking if there was a faster way of doing this, but my brain is tired. So you can see how I can see all the lines going through it. This is the paper side. And I would take it out a little bit. And then draw the line on it. Keep in mind that this is a iron erase pen. So that line's going to be going to disappear when I iron it. So this would be, I will mark this left and right as well, or tell you to do that in the instructions. They keep teasing us saying we're going to get some snow, and then they go, no, we changed our mind. So you flip that over and draw from this side. And because you have the light tablet, I can see through it even though I have done that. And once I realized ironing it was going to make this pen disappear, I decided not to bother with the extra line. Where are you? What am I doing? What am I looking for? Oh, I'm looking for a regular marker to draw over that. Because, oops. Why make it harder on myself? I shouldn't have cut this one, and I want you to see why. First off, this fabric frays tremendously, and this is a pretty heavy velvet material, which I think will really complement this nicely. But if you were to just iron that down, now you have to be really ever so careful to cut your fabric right along that fused line. So it's better to leave it with paper. I don't like this. And then iron that to the wrong side of the fabric. And I'll just cut this out a little bit and get the other one ready the right way. We also have other patches to do on this. And on one of the patches I used a blanket stitch, so I thought I would show you just how to do a regular blanket stitch applique as well. Are you guys going to have a Christmas breakfast or brunch or lunch or dinner? I'm making au gratin potatoes. If you'd like my recipe, I could put that in the school for you. I'm kind of known for it. So that's this side. I'm going to take, is that the one I need? I think so. Yeah, this is the side I need the designs for. Ah, pattern piece running away from me. Sometimes I cut long strips, and I will cut the stabilizer rather than ironing it on and then cutting to save some. So this is why I have such short, I have varying sizes of the fuse and fuse, so that on little small projects I have the easier to handle size. Always making sure your paper side is facing up. However, we have the applique pencils that allow you to draw on the fusible side of the stabilizer. Should you want to do that, especially on the patchwork style of applique, where you tuck under your fabric and stitch a hand stitch look on the outside, which is another type of applique that you'll find inside of my YouTube channel and in the school, patchwork applique. If I were to be tracing out each stocking, I would put an R on these for right side of the stocking so that I didn't get these pieces confused, and I would put heel on this one. And then this is the one where we're going to just do a regular blanket stitch, which is right here. So you write your pattern out, but know that if you use one pattern, this is the left side, this is the right side, with the paper on this facing up. This is the heel, this is the standalone patch, and now I need to draw out the toe. In some of my patterns, I actually make it so you can print directly on this fuse and fuse, because it is printable. It's also a good idea to trace all of your applique pieces on a smaller piece of the fuse and fuse. Take it out like that so you know this is the toe, and this is the right toe. When I cook, I'm allergic to some foods, so I don't use cans of soup or anything like that. I have to make everything from scratch. One of the things I'm allergic to is when you see natural flavors written on the ingredient list. It really just makes me not well for a few days. So I've learned that because there's supposedly nothing in there that I'm allergic to, but if it has that, It's not a very pleasant experience. So before you cut your stocking out, and after you've quilted, then you position your pieces and embellish and applique, and then you cut it out, and then you construct it. So that's how to do it right. I need to get the iron ready. I also need to consider which fabric do I want to have for my hang tie. And I was thinking this would look really pretty next to the fur. Which should I use, red or black for the little hang tie? Think about it while I position this and get the iron hot. I need your help, you guys. That's a really hard decision. I also have I can use the lining red. I can use this red, the lining red, the white fur, or the black that I'm using for the patches. Really not that big of a deal, but it's a lot of choice for one day. This is my ironing mat, and I'm placing it right on top of my cutter pillar because it has a thick piece of plastic. It is an actual cutting mat. This is the June Taylor cutting mat, and on one side it's an ironing board, and on the other side it's a cutting board, and it is enough to prevent the heating of the cutter pillar beneath it. So you want to think about that. If you don't want to have this, there is the glass mat that you can get. That is the size of the basic, and is 11 by 17. Yeah, and then this one's 17 by 24, the Ultra. So if you get the glass mat for it, for inking on and for ironing on, then it's half of the size of the Ultra and the full size of the smaller ones. I'm so excited to start the Creative Feed Extensive. I got butterflies. I actually thought about doing the show in Phoenix, but that didn't pan out, Amy. Or it doesn't look like it will. But I'm leaning toward not doing it, even if it does become something I can do, because of the Creative Feed Extensive course opening. I need to have all my brain cells. So you just need a piece of fabric big enough to iron your patches on to the back side of the fabric. And this is a very lush fabric. It has highs and lows in it. So that's the back side. On the right side, it has reflections again that this camera doesn't like. So it's velvet. Brushed velvet is what you'd call this. And it has, this is good enough to make a seat in or a cushion in your house with. That will last for years and years. This would also really be a fun fabric to use for the cuff as well, because you don't have to go with the white fur. You also don't have to use fur and velvet at all. You can use polka dots and other fun fabrics for a stocking. I was tempted to use this one right here. I was like, that would be a fun one. And then I have some Christmas fabric, and there's some pink tones in it, and I was like, this would be really fun and nothing like I normally do. To have this be the lining on the, be a complete contrast to the floral fabric. But I couldn't do it. I tend to be a little bit more traditional. I could see one of you doing like peace sign fabric, If you're a peace sign fabric kind of Christmas stocking person, give me a thumbs up. Or if you can find the peace sign image inside of there, I'm pretty sure they have one. My iron is hot enough. Okay, so right side down. And you can see this is protruding out past the fabric that I'm going to put it on. If I just went and ironed that right now, I would be at risk of ironing that to the right side of my stocking. That would not be good. So I generally will do this, cut it down as close to it, but not too close to it. Save my little pieces because you never know. You might just need the nose on a dog or something. Making sure that I have that right side up. I do. Or right side down, I mean. No steam on the iron. And then set it down, and I usually count kinda sorta to about 60 seconds and then lift it and then put it down again. And this is one time when you can iron. The act of ironing is sliding the iron. Pressing is just pushing. I highly recommend that you iron so that you get all of the circumference of the fabric or of the paper that you're putting on there. And that it is all heated up to that cotton temperature. And then set it aside and let it cool. Got another piece here. Another way to secure your fabric, your little pieces. Oops, it was still too hot, so hot that it started to heat this up just by me putting it down. Is to put a little piece, a little drop of the liquid-based glue on the back side to hold it in place so that the piece doesn't shift on you when you're not expecting it to. No, top tight. There we go. You can't find a peace sign emoji. How dare they? This is right side, you guys. No. No, it wasn't. Oh, I should just put my glasses on. Oh, make sure you pick up all your little scraps. And I got a little scrap drawer here where I drop in things like that. So I don't get tempted to throw it away, because why throw something away that costs you money? Now these are the Kai scissors we sell at creativefeet.com. They're my favorite scissors, and I have cut through tremendous amounts of paper. And they seem to be more resilient. This is one time I am going to use scissors that are made for fabric, even though I'm cutting through paper, because this fabric is so thick that paper scissors would not work. My handwriting, I've been told, is like a doctor's. Can you even read that? And then let it cool before you try peeling it off. Can't remember what I had those lines on there for. Sure I don't need it. Hope I don't need it. We'll find out if I need it. Are any of you flying this holiday season? Or are any of you actually in the car right now? Driving And watching the show or listening to the show if you're driving. I hope not watching. Because that happens like on a regular basis. I'm watching the show while I'm driving. I'm like, I hope you're not doing that. Hopefully someone else has got the wheel. It's not every day you have a Christmas stocking that you applique and embellish, and you could monogram, and a lot of different things could be done on this one project to teach you and build your confidence level. So it's definitely cool enough, and you might find that you can't get the paper to come off of it. If you experience that, you can take a straight pin and kind of tear it. And that area tends to come up easier. And then you'll see a shiny, I didn't flip it over. I do that as well, I forgot. Let me do that. And here's when I do push steam through. Especially on thick fabrics. You can use this on leathers and suede, but if you do, you want to make sure you put a pressing cloth over it so you don't melt the fibers on the fabric. This is a pretty resilient velveteen type of fabric. But if I were using this on a sofa or something, I would never put cotton setting on the top of a velveteen. You don't need to read it. I totally don't know what we're saying. So you see how I can't get that? It's so funny because it just needs to be scored a little bit. Now I know it's definitely on there. Peeling it back slowly, a little bit by a little bit. Trying to make sure, I shouldn't have done it as hot as it is. I got away with it. We're doing Christmas Eve. And I haven't had my daughter in my presence at Christmas in years because she and her husband go up the mountain in Perg, as she says it, in Colorado, and they go snow biking. Took her a long time to admit she did that. She didn't want me worrying about her. Then one day I had a dream that, never mind. Let's just say she decided to wear her helmet that day after my dream. And now she's got really good helmets. Like super expensive. I can't believe how much they cost. Almost as much as the bike. But that's precious. Her head, you know. Oh, this is definitely trash. I didn't know where to put it. So this is the toe, this is the heel. And it's pretty easy to position because I have that line that I drew around me. Clear this area. I got little places for everything. Oh well. So here's the line of stitching that I stitched over the line that I drew, and that helps me position my toe. But as I move around and I position the other patch, what if I'm just not getting it right? Let's see. It'd be interesting to see if I can see through this. Probably not without doing this. And making that line a little bit bigger or darker. Let's see. because this is pretty dark fabric here. I try to save you guys ink by not having my patterns have dark color, but it's, you know, up to you. If you could draw it in, or would you prefer I make it darker and you end up using more ink on your printer? This isn't a very precision project that we're doing anyway, so I'm gonna eyeball it. I think I fused it, I did this one wrong. I want to make sure you're inside of that seam allowance. And here's the heel. Oh, I didn't have the light all the way up. No wonder. It's quite a bit for it to be able to handle all of that anyway, through the batting and the dark fabric. I'm looking for my glue. Here it is. This is one time I will actually use the liquid based in the middle of a design or of the pieces. Can't wait till my hand is back to normal. So I just put one little drop there and spread it out a little, and then I can position my piece while I wait to iron it. And it will be important, your position of this, because when you go to sew the stockings together, the two sides have that, unless you only want to place the applique on one side, which, depending on how it hangs on the mantle, determines whether or not you even need to position those on both sides. Did I make sense? If I made sense, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I'm a little bit loopy today. Where's the cap? I know you're tempted to say, you're loopy every day. I can't find the cap right now, so we're just going to, and you should, use a pressing cloth. This is the release liner from Stick and Tear, and it has like a waxy, this is not a good pressing cloth. Piece of paper can be used as a pressing cloth in lieu of having a Teflon pressing sheet, because there's no chance of this adhesive coming through. Oh, there's my lid. I found it. Yay. Since I've already tested this and I know that this fabric can handle the heat, I'm going to push steam through all these patches. And we're going to get to the fun part. How do you handle it when you want to sew beads into a seam? That's really a noisy iron, isn't it? Which one should we use? I didn't place any pearls on the other stocking. On this one it is just rat tail cording here and here. But I thought, what if you want to sew some pearls on? What if you want to sew pearls on something and then you have to sew a seam? How do you sew with the pearls in the seam? So should I use red or silver? I'm leaning towards silver. So on the toe or on the heel. These are things that just don't matter. I could even, no, it's all about showing you how to handle it in a seam. I think we like our toes to be more pretty. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew the silver ones on the toe, and I will sew the rat tail cording on the heel, and I think white will be a better contrast than red. So I have made these decisions without you having to help me, but you agreed. I see that. And which foot will I be using for this? Now, if you have a foot for sewing beads and it did not have the Creative Feet name on it, it's a copy of my foot, as I am the original inventor of this foot when I was 20 years old. And this one is one I have marked with something. Where's the other foot? It's really hot. I thought this sweater would be cooler than it is. Don't say I'm having a hot flash. Those have long since been outside of my life. Here's another one. I'll explain why I have one drawn on, because I do show you to do this sometimes. So this is the actual foot, pristine and pretty. And this one has a glow-in-the-dark nail polish impression. I kind of just show you that you can get the glow-in-the-dark nail polish, put it on the side of the foot. If it drops, you can turn your light out and then your foot will glow. Because a lot of people lose their pearls and piping foot. I'll never forget being at a show and a lady came back with it. She goes, "I didn't steal this. It was in the cuff of my pants." She had walked around for a while and then crossed her leg and it fell out of the cuff of her pants onto the floor, and she was like, "She probably thinks I stole it." So they bounce too. All right, here we go. This camera. The pearls and piping foot has a patented shaped tunnel that allows you to sew over different size and different shaped round items, including zippers, as I recently showed in a video. You could even position more than one trim in there at a time, and it will, because of its shape, gather up those two trims and bring them together as it stitches, as your sewing machine stitches down. So it's kind of magical. And it has this little washer that slides left and right on there, which makes it, gosh, sorry for bumping the camera, which makes it so that you can change the position or location that your zigzag stitch swings over these pearls. Removing the satin edge foot, which I was using for the accurate seam allowance. And I'm thinking, should I stick with the same gold or should I switch to green? Or I can go with the red. Remember, this is going to be on the silver. I feel like you're going to agree with me, and I should use red. Oh, got a green. These are the options. Because I definitely just I'm done with the gold. We've done it enough on the quilting. The camera looks great now. I wonder what it's going to do when this comes in there. See, it just doesn't like that fabric. I'm going to try the top close camera and have you make that decision. Seeing it from the top. Oh, you're right. Definitely green. I was disagreeing with you guys for sure, but you were right and I was wrong. See, this is why I ask for help. To make it easier, you can iron the hold light stabilizer to the back of the stocking so that it doesn't stick on the bed of the machine. I'm going to give it a try though without it, just to see how it goes and let you know before If you don't have any of the Hold Light stabilizer in your possession, I have a good feeling about it. Especially because we're sewing over the upholstery fabric. Now I'm looking in my mind before rehearsing in my mind, and I have stitches that the blanket stitch goes like this. Yeah. And then the feather stitch, no, the shell tuck stitch goes like this. And that one moves faster. You see less thread. I want to see more thread, and the blanket stitch is pointing in the wrong direction if I have the stocking going this way. So I can turn the stocking around, or if your sewing machine has the ability to mirror the stitch, you can flip your blanket stitch over to the other side. So keep that in mind as you work, but my brain does not like working that way. My brain likes the fabric to be facing that direction as I sew. Are you quirky in that way? Do you have to have something positioned a certain way when you sew? How about what do you push on your foot control? Do you put your foot on it like a person normally would? Or are you like I am and position your foot control sideways and only use one toe? And I have really small feet. That's probably why I adapted to that. I also feel like I hyperextended my Achilles tendon when having to push your whole foot down. So do you guys push your whole foot down on the pedal, or are you a toe pusher? If anyone just walked in right now, we're talking about the foot control on your sewing machine, not the presser foot. And I am talking about a presser foot because I'm about to sew pearls on to the heel of this, or the toe of this stocking, using the pearls and piping foot. And thread the needle. So you guys are like normal. I'm the oddball, I guess. My thread wasn't in this correctly, so it didn't thread. But it may not thread because it's metallic. So I'm going to give it one more try by putting the foot down, sew a stitch, and then try my needle threader again. If it doesn't work, then I will have to use a needle threader. Oh, there we go. So that's a good rule of thumb for you guys to know. And I want most of the stitch to go, this is not the right one, this is where I'm sewing. So I want most of the stitch to go to the left, and if the washer is over to the left, then it pushes the fabric to the right. But I may not be able to use it in this position. I may only be able to use it in the other. So we'll see. And you don't really know until you try it. So a good rule of thumb would be to practice on another piece of fabric before jumping in. You also want to examine your pearls and make sure that there aren't any damaged ones for the length of stitching that you're going to sew. These used to all be really high quality, but now there's lower priced points, and so I'm making sure that I could go all the way around that and have a little extra on both ends before there's any damaged pearls. And it looks like it would have gone all the way to here, but you can see there's a missing one, and you don't want to have one missing in the middle of your stitching. You want to know that you're going to contend with that ahead of time. This is still my injured hand, so it doesn't want to work the right way. But it's so close to being all better, you guys. I'm really excited at the thought of that. The blanket stitch is the stitch that I want to use because it shows up a lot. I've selected it on my machine, and then I turn the hand wheel to see where the needle is going to come down. If the needle is coming down on the pearl, in this case, I do want to sew a bigger stitch or a wider stitch. So I'm taking it to a 4.0, and then it does clear the pearl, so I don't need to worry about it. And I can use the foot on this side. I'm going to start out here. So I'm starting beyond the area where I'm actually going to want it to be sewn. My foot's not down. The reason I'm starting outside of it is going to be explained in a moment. Partly why I don't cut until I've sewn the applique and so now we're embellishing and appliquing at once. This is similar to last week's episode where I showed how I made this pillow over here and I pieced the fabric while embellishing, and that was done with the sequins and ribbon foot. So each of the creative feet can be used for embellishing, and all three of the creative feet can also be used for couching, different trims down. There's so much to learn. You feel like you have more control going this direction as well, Ellen? It's not just me. Sorry for the weird color and behavior of this camera with the red color. If I put my hand in there, it's like it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's the metallic. Focusing on that pearl that's just about to go beneath the foot, making sure it stays on the edge of the fabric without holding the pearl, but rather holding the fabric. Steering, looking right there, not at the needle, no matter how tempting it is to look at the needle. This is at the front door. This is inside the house. You can't let someone in your door without being at the door. Keep your eye face focused right here. That one pearl about to go in, and your hands are free to steer the fabric without pulling or pushing the fabric through. And I say that all the way while I'm sewing. I go, look here, look here, look here, to myself. Why? Because it's so easy to get distracted by the needle, sewing over these pearls, which you think might break your needle. But as you can see, without holding on at all, because of the way I engineered this foot, you can't hit your needle once you know that you're set in the beginning, so you can relax and know that you can just keep sewing around. Any copy of my foot, generally the people are holding the pearls, putting their finger in front, trying to assist in the guiding. So it's just always better to buy from the original inventor of something anyway. And our products are American made and always have been. I never went to another country for any of my products. So there's the pearls, and this camera right here will probably do a better job at showing, well, at least the fabric shows. Let me see if I can get this one to do a better job. You know what? Inside of the school, see how cool that stitch looks? It's having a hard time focusing on it. Try to get the light out of there. Maybe. No, it just doesn't want to focus on that. There goes the iron I forgot to turn off. It kind of looks like a star. Maybe the top will get it better. No. I'll take a picture of this and post it in the Create with Claire Rowley school. So be sure to join if you haven't yet. And it has a real stunning look to it. Not at all the boring just zigzag stitch. It's really something. So now the next part is going to be rat tail cording, and I can use the same stitch or switch to another stitch. How am I going to handle that? I knew I needed to get them out. Did I get them out? Let's see. Thanks for not letting me forget. This camera will probably work. I'm going to go ahead and put that foot down to hold it in place for me. And then I would get your pliers. And I don't know where mine are. So basically what you're trying to do is crunch. I'm not going to do that on my machine. That would not be good. That's the Wrong camera. I didn't mean to select that. We'll do this one. So many cameras to choose from. What happened was I brought all my tools home for doing some work around the house. Then I brought them all back, and then we had another problem and I had to take the tools back. And so now I actually leave them in my car so that I can just take my tools. My tools are wherever I need them to be, but I forgot to bring them in. If you have a hammer or something, I'm not going to hammer on my Caterpillar light tablet. This is going to be a bad thing to try to edit. So, and you can. Sorry for the noise. I'm going to mute the camera. I mean the mic. Now if you only crush and remove the pearls that are outside of that, then you will still have to contend with it in the seam allowance. So this is when you really have to dedicate or make a decision. How big of a seam allowance are you going to do or so? And I'm going to remove 2 more pearls right there. By the way, I'm making pressers tomorrow, which is what you're seeing me crunch these pearls with. So now we had pearls going all the way to here, and now it's just thread, and it will be secured because the thread will still be inside of the seam. Is that what you thought I was going to do? If you knew what I was going to do, give me a thumbs up or say, I knew. Or you could give me a winky face or something braggy. Is there a bragging emoji? The cording, the rat tail cording, we'll be able to sew over in the seam without much to do. It'll make noise, but it's not, you're not going to be at risk of breaking your needle. I have the green thread in here, and I'm just going to stick with it to save time. You had no idea? Now you know. And I don't know if this is, I'm just going to stick with this camera here. For years, all we had was this camera angle. My temptation is to just go all the way around this, but this is going to be in the seam, this area here on the heel. So really, it's like a lemon shape, and we're just going to go around 1/2 of the lemon. But again, I'm going to take it outside and start from the outside. And why? Because then you know your thread isn't going to come undone. And I'm going to leave this on the same settings that I used for the pearls, so you can see it. And then in the photographs, you're going to see how the stitch changes when it's sewn, when a pearl is in there. I'm going to lengthen the stitch length a little bit because I like it. And that's the only reason. Once again, your focus is on the front of the foot, keeping the cording on the front of the foot without steering it with your hands. And in case the person that was asking about rhinestones is here today and really, really wanting to know about the rhinestones, I shouldn't have said anything because I don't know where my rhinestones are. So I'm going to lower the needle and stop with the needle in the outside swing. Lift the foot and pivot. And that's simply because I lost, this started to come off of the applique instead of staying on it. Notice how I kind of whip it off to the side or flip it away so that I don't lose focus of the front of the foot. Especially with all that movement of the needle going forward and back and left and right, it's a lot. And it's very easy to get distracted by that needle. You want to keep your eye focused right on the front of the foot. I'm taking a couple screenshots of that. All right. See, this is the real color red, isn't it pretty? I'm coming out again, going past where the stitching line will be. So that's the exact same stitch that I used. However, on this one, it fans out because the pearls push the stitches apart and give it a V look, so it comes together and goes out like that, even though it's the same stitch. Isn't that fascinating? Now we have this last patch to do, and I can follow what I did before, which is just a applique without any trim. So would you like me to do that? Or would you like me to put some fur on this one? Ooh, we haven't made the stocking yet. We could do a little of this on the edge of the cuff too. Would that be fun? So yarn or no yarn? Yarn or no yarn? While I drink a little bit of water and mute myself. Uh-oh, you guys aren't in agreement. Here's the thing, if I stitch the yarn, I'm going to show you a different technique. Let's see. Somebody just cannot resist honking at their friend when they leave every day. All right, that's the difference when you're in a different location and you have neighbors, and I have neighbors now. Yes, yarn, we got more yarn than no yarn, so we're gonna go ahead and stitch it. And you may have thought it was fur because it's furry yarn. It's called eyelash yarn. We have an eyelash concept going on here today. Two different terms for eyelash today. What was the other one? Do you remember? So you see the two holes in that? Which of the two openings should I put the yarn in? Which one? We don't have very far to go, so I'm going to cut a piece of this off instead of dealing with the entire roll of it. And I'm doing so because I have a reason. So which opening? The smaller one or the larger one? And this is the 1/8 inch accessory guide for the sequins and ribbon foot. The sequin and ribbon foot comes with a 1/4 inch guide attached to it like this. So when you purchase it, it comes with a 1/4 inch. I just hit my elbow. And then we have accessories that come separate like this one. And you replace it with the other guide. And this one already has it on it just to make things faster. And I'm going to take this foot off, which is the foot I used for the pearls and piping foot, and to help you understand the difference between the two feet, or when to use which of the feet depending on what type of trim you're sewing, because they look similar. This is round and this is round. So you might think, well, I'm just going to use the pearls and piping foot for this. But if you do, this is yarn and it squishes flat. It's like I feel standing in front of the mirror. I may look this size, but in my mind, I'm still that skinny girl. So you're going to squish and roll the yarn between your fingers to determine the opening that you want to use. And in this case, and in much bigger than this, you're still going to use the smallest of the openings. The eyelash yarn has a nap to it, kind of like a cat. How they have, if you pet the cat backwards, their hair sticks up and you can really annoy them. So you want to pet it both ways. And if one way it resists, well, you want to make sure you don't put it through the guide that way. So in order to get the end that I want to go into the guide, I need to cut it to a length that matches or is close to the area that I'm going to stitch around. So just, and it's always a good rule of thumb to have a little extra on both ends. So now I know that's plenty, and I can cut this off. But I still have to get this. I still got to get that into that hole. How do I get it in the hole? Oh my goodness, I keep banging my elbow. Next week, if I say, my elbow hurts, I don't know why, can you remind me? I kept hitting it on my drawer that I had open. So much better to have a pad. And I got my tablet way off to the side, which you shouldn't do. So if you have a light tablet, you want to make sure it's fully on a surface, that you don't have it hanging part off. And there we go. Use thread. Wendy's right. You are correct. And how do you use thread to thread that through? And once again, I need to check. Yeah, this is definitely the correct way. So this is the end I want to insert into the guide. I have thread laying around. So you just lay the thread down, lay the yarn over it, bring the two ends of the thread together. Get over there. So much static electricity in here today. There we go. Be easier if I had a little bit longer piece of thread. Then the yarn actually gets stuck on that loop of thread. And you can insert it into the guide. Now 2 layers of that have to go through there. Pull it back. And you can see how it's opening up the eyelash look of it. What stitch should I use for this? This is why there's instructions. So which stitch is best for eyelash yarn? And what thread? I got the green metallic thread on there. I'm just going to leave it on. But you could use an invisible thread and not see the stitch at all. And I'm adjusting the guide. Let me see if the other camera will give you a better look at this. So you can see it is in the right side. And then my arms aren't long enough. And you just turn the nut on the foot and it moves the guide over. Now in all the copies of this foot, they did not copy this. Once again, we want to make sure that the trim stays on the edge of the fabric. And I'm going to use a regular old zigzag stitch. If I can find it. And a 3mm wide zigzag. Before I do that, I'm going to start with a straight stitch, So a couple stitches to get a good knot, and actually the thread's not in the needle. Oh my goodness. The thread is out of the needle, so I have to thread the machine. I'm gonna spend time with an ice pack on my eyes tonight. And hopefully that will be all I need to do. I'm also gonna pull back some of the thread toward me, or the yarn, because I cut it really kind of close to the size I need it to be. And once it's in the guide, you can't take it out and put it back in at the end because it's already out, and that'll make more sense the first time you go to use it. Yay. Ice my elbow too. That's not a bad idea. So a couple straight stitches to tie a knot, and you can reverse it as well, just as you normally would. Another stitch that you could use is the tricot stitch, or the 3-step zigzag, also known as the serpentine stitch. However, I really feel like this is better for a zigzag stitch. And the stitch length is set for the, so I got my width of 3.5. I'm going to take it down to 3.0. And the length, I'm going to take to a 2 from a 1.5. And this is a longer than you would normally do zigzag stitch. Making sure that the zigzag stitch is going on either side of the stringy part that the eyelash is coming off of. And moving the guide, if need be, to get the needle to swing on the left and the right side of it. Once you know that you have that, then you can, as before with the pearls and piping foot, just push the trim off to the side, keeping your eye focused at that spot and making sure it lines up with the edge. My bobbin thread is coming up. Something's stuck. I know there's always someone going, oh, I'm so glad things happen to her like that. I think I actually feel like my bobbin thread is out of the tension. Bringing my needle down in the outside swing and bringing it over. Oh, it just fell off there again, that's all. So what's going on is I have my thread on the thread stand, but I didn't take it around one of the loops, or one of the posts, the vertical posts on the top, which keeps metallic thread from going crazy. When it goes crazy, it falls off the guide, and then the thread is coming off the top of the spool instead of coming straight off the top of the spool. It leans and it snaps over the top of the spool. And then the bobbin thread just gets pulled up to the top. And all of that makes this sound like this is going to just look horrible when I'm finished, doesn't it? For shame, for shame. I need my glasses. Where are they? Why are you... Lower the foot? That's what I was trying to do. Quit beeping at me. I'm trying to lower it. Oh. All right. Do you ever argue with your sewing machine? Well, now my foot control moved away. Isn't this just lovely? Make sure you keep focused on the front of the foot. These little hairs are getting in my eyelashes. The eyelash yarn is in my eyelash. Do you guys have that much static cling in your area as well? It's not looking very good, is it? What happened to it? It's not fluffy anymore. All right, fuzzies, get out of my face. There we go. And I'm going to come and cross over where I started, just a smidge. And back up a little. And go to the straight stitch to tie a knot again. And it's like, what the heck happened? And it's just that the eyelash yarn is stuck in the stitch. You can actually take a hairbrush and brush it. Or if you have like an eyelash comb for your makeup, and you start brushing it. In essence, you just want to pull out those little fuzzies from the stitch. Much quicker with a comb. I had this great Clover used to sell this really awesome little eyelash brush, and it would just come right out right away. Now, if it's too wild for you, Amy, you could also give it a haircut afterward. And this is something you can finish after you're done sewing. So I'm going to stop it. So say the hairs are just a little bit too long. You can go back and give it a little haircut. Now it's time for finishing, and I'm not going to finish this one. Uh-oh, they just landed in the trash. Those are too important to throw away. Where is it? So this is the one I did that's just plain on accident. And now it's, how do we get the cuff on there? We're almost done. So I may not see you until next year. We'll see. It's more important that the Creative Feet Extensive starts on time. And I did on the 5th, the VIP Live. So in January, I'll be announcing the VIP Live for January soon as well. Now it seems like it would just be easier to sew your stocking cuff and make it one big piece and then just fold it. But it's easier to have two pieces and sew it together. And my brain's going, how do you do that again? I can't remember why. It's been too long. It'd be a good idea for me to add a little mark so you know the top from the bottom. And I'm going to now put away the metallic thread and get out the satin edge foot. Or should I use the pearls and piping foot? I'm sewing fur and batting. The school is createwithclairerowley.com. It'll be in the description below, but I'll give you a link right now. Because not everyone knows how to spell my name. Oh, that's my regular site. I also have just a clairerowley.com site where you can learn everything about me because I do more than this. And so this is the school. I got too many. There's too many places to find me now. And I'm launching a, what's it called? A podcast soon. Come on, Claire. Is that one going to be right? There we go. So that's the school. And then if you want to buy anything that you see me using here, then you can go to the website, creativefeet.com. And be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. But know that I do my best to announce all of these events inside of the school and also on my newsletter at creativefeet.com. But if you don't have your settings set to receive notifications, you'll just not know what's going on unless you drop into the school and look. And there's a lot of information in there, so it's a good idea to set up your notifications. I'm going to place some polyester, 40 weight polyester. This is just embroidery thread. This is the polyfast that we offer at creativefeet.com, which I absolutely love. And you can use it for garment construction. You can use it for decorative stitches and appliques and embroidery. It's a multifaceted, very strong, wonderful thread that goes through the sewing machine perfectly. I haven't had any sewing machine not do well with it. If you've ever used a thread before for embroidery and you had your thread shredding above the needle all the way through, know that it has to do with the thread. And I like you guys to always be happy with me. So what we carry, I'm very picky about. Speaking of that, we do have the Deco Bob bobbins that I'm closing out. And I'm not closing it out because it isn't good. I'm closing it out because it's not moving fast enough. And I have need for that space. So if you're, and you can buy, and I will continue to sell the Deco Bob in cones. I just think most people are like, I can wind my own bobbin. So are you the type that wants to wind your own bobbin? If not, you should definitely check out the site and go and make a steal deal in there. They're really cheap right now till they're gone, and then they're gone. We'll continue to sell the multi-pack like you see here, but not the individuals. That's where I'm at right now in my decision making. It's very possible that I'll bring in white, black, and maybe just a few assorted colors. But right now, all of the individual colors are at a ridiculously low price. Take advantage of me. Now's the time, especially the Caterpillars, because right now our prices are lower than they're supposed to be. By, like, if you were to get the Ultra, it's going to be $20 more than you see it on my site right now. And you got 15% off if you put stocking, all uppercase, stocking, into the coupon box. And if you spend over $69 US dollars, you get free shipping. Back to this. And I'm buying myself some time trying to remember what to do. Yeah. If I remember correctly, it's been a while. I was going to sew it before. We have fuzzy side to fuzzy side. This is not so fun. What can I do to make it easier to sew fuzzy side to fuzzy side? You hate winding bobbins. That's why you took advantage. I know, Wendy, you got a lot of bobbins recently. So you won't have to think about it for a while. I feel like that is not the right piece. There we go. One way you can put these together is by using clips. And I would, once you get it in position, definitely clip it right away. Whoops. They're slippery little buggers. Now if you're a pinner, you can pin. But if you pin, you should never sew over your pins. You can also pin smaller segments. So go in and out more than once. That would be the best way to pin that to keep it from shifting. And another way is to use the liquid base and to put some drops. And in this case, I know I usually tell you to spread it out. Don't. And very, very light touch on that. Now the liquid based will actually lock this fabric together once it's dry, and I would absolutely wait for it to dry. The straight side is the side I sew. So this is where I want to go. No bobbins for years. And that is in part because they are made with a thinner thread. So the Deco Bob is 80 weight, which means it's 2 times thinner than the thread I'm going to use in the needle. I'm going to go ahead and run my finger across and give it a test, but I feel like it's, in this instance, leaving it a little drop will help it. We'll see. Another thing that would make this easier to sew would be to have ironed the hold light onto the fur before cutting it out and leave the hold light on it while you sew it, and then you remove it after. This is also a fantastic process for whenever you have to work with lame fabric. If you just look at it, it goes, starts to fray. Taffeta too. Oh, some of the worst fraying fabrics. So I draft my pattern, or take a pattern and draw it on the hold light. Then I iron it to the fabric, and then I cut it out, and you don't remove the hold light till you've sewn it together, and it makes it so much easier. So I have red thread, and it's the white cuff, but it's fur, so it's going to disappear. The Pearls and Piping foot is the foot that I'm going to use for this because it loves thick fabrics and helps you to sew accurately. And the satin edge foot does want to tip a little, which we require a crutch, as I did show earlier in the video. If you're coming in late, know that you can learn more about what a crutch is. All right, so what you want to do is you want to sew, and I'm trying to make sure I'm right. Yeah, you want to go on like that and leave the bottom half off or not stitched. Let's see how the webcam works on this. Look, it likes this color so much. And then we're just going to use a straight stitch. I generally start on the fabric, and then I will go backward and then come back. I'm definitely going to do that this time because it's going to be manipulated quite a bit in order to, I have a bobbin on the floor. Oh no, I need to get it. I know I don't have to tell you guys why you don't want to let a bobbin go running around on the floor. Using a straight stitch, left needle position. You have me doubting whether or not I'm right now, Amy. Come on. Come up. And needle down. And lift and turn. And this is minky. It's just a wonderful fabric. A lot of people are nervous to sew it, and that's partly because there's educators teaching you to cut it and tie it instead of stitching it, but they engineered it pretty good. It works really good for sewing. See how nice and accurate that stitch is? Now we take the little clip off and this is another instance where you will want to use a comb or a brush and brush this. Your brain is having trouble understanding. I know. It's probably because I did it wrong. It is because I did it wrong. Because I didn't have enough pieces. I remember now. I remember now. Yeah, so, you know, it's been a few years. And as I said, I was going to make one before I went live today. My brain's having trouble too, Amy. And I'm overheating. And I don't have the heat on. We're supposed to be... It's just, it's so little. That's what's going on. It's so little, I'm having trouble functioning with it. It's supposed to be 2 of these. And then you sew up the side seams. You know how hard it is to rip out thread on fur? And the reason you do it in 2 sections, which I had cut but didn't remember, and I shouldn't have tied a knot because I could have broken that. It's too strong. Is because this side seam helps you line it up in here, and we're going to sew it inside. Sorry for making you guys go through this. Does it make sense? Because if it doesn't, I can't quit yet. This is me trying to be lazy. I got fur everywhere. And my hesitation is all of this stuff is in the way. I had my pattern piece out. Do you think it makes sense now? Yes. That's why there are 4 pieces for the cuff. And so I think I wrote it in your pattern wrong too, Amy. So you want to cut 4? But there's like no way my eyesight can get that stitch in there. And you can see even though it's red thread, you can't see the stitch in there. All right, I will cut 2 more. Because it's just wrong not to finish it at this point. That's the whole point of the video, was to show you how to finish. I had a whole bunch of things fall on the floor, and one of them was that pattern piece. So I'm just going to use this as a pattern piece. Get it up here so it doesn't want to fall down. and I'm going to wing it. I could pin it. You can't use the class 15 bobbins. Sorry about that. It's just way too much inventory and it takes up a lot of space. It doesn't seem like it would take up that much space, but it does. And if they moved faster, and partly why they, I've discovered why we didn't have as many sales, because they were competing against us. They're selling for way less than we were selling for. And so it just doesn't make you want to continue carrying it. So I wasn't going to say anything, but Temu is just destroying the United States internet sales of just about every industry. So if you are a Temu shopper, just know that it could be the end of a lot of manufacturers in the United States. If you do. And the only way they could be selling as low as they are is if they are actually manufacturing products they have no right to manufacture, because companies hired them to make their products there, and then they are making them and selling them for less than it costs for them to make them. And I don't get the point of it, other than that they're trying to hurt American companies. That's all I can figure. Or it could be other countries as well. That's it. That's all I have to say about that. I was shocked yesterday when I looked at that for the first time to see how low they're going. And as a manufacturer who has never used them, I know some of the products they're selling for so little. I know the owners of those companies. It's just so wrong. I can't find my rotary cutter. Did you fall on the floor? I'd be done. Everything fell on the floor. Did you guys see that happen? Yeah, for me, it feels like warfare. Doesn't make any sense. They're not making money doing it either. The only object, or the only point of it would be to just do damage. Sorry about that. I try not to do that on my show. Here's the thing, when you buy on Amazon, you're helping my company. I don't mind. You can buy my products on Amazon. And most of the companies sell on Amazon. You're helping small business on there. It's not as bad. Or Walmart. Both of those are, you open your own little shop in there. Yeah, so you sew up the two sides, and then I gotta think it through. Side to side. Gosh, I can't think this through at all. Talk me through it, Amy. We need the side seams. Oops. One of these days I got to get a new cutter on my machine. So I didn't cut a good job here. I really am like totally confused. I'm confused. I'm so glad I never hired them to do anything though, because they would have my molds, you know. All right, enough of that. Bad. Another thing it does is it kind of implies that companies overcharge, and they don't. I have to think. So yeah, my brain says it's this, and if I don't do it right, I'm not going to give up, because that's how I am. Right? Yep. And then now we sew up the side seams and go all the way around. My hands are really not orange. That camera makes them look orange. Oh. In a perfect world, I would have not been distracted this morning by other things. And every week, I'm feeling like I'm really ready, and then something has been happening to prevent me from getting as far along as I want. And this was the part I wanted to do right before I went live, because it is tricky. Tricky on the brain. Now we sew across the top. Even with the, well, I shouldn't talk anymore. You guys go ahead and keep talking. I'm going to stay out of it at this point. I didn't even glue it, you guys, and it worked really well. Normally you would get a little pinch or a little pucker right there, but it didn't happen. I still feel like I did something wrong. I did. I shouldn't have done the two side seams. I'm supposed to make it into a circle. Can I just chop it? It's supposed to make a tube. I didn't tie knots at the end though, so that I could rip it out, because we're talking about things that are upsetting and my brain isn't functioning as well. It would have been even wiser to use a long stitch length, because that would have been easier to remove. You're confused again. Sorry to have confused you. This is why the pattern will come in handy, and a new video that's recorded to go along with it. There'll probably be 2 videos to support the pattern when it's finished, just as I did with the bowl cozies. Come on. There we go. There we go. I made a sweatshirt out of Minky for Tinkerbell. I don't know if you guys remember that episode. And in there we have sleeves, which are similar to this. And this is not complex. But I have swollen eyes that are burning, and so I'm a little bit like a baby today. And if you didn't need the side seams, it would be easier to do this part, except for when you go to put it in, then it would be more challenging to line up the side seams. So you sew these 2 together, and then you sew up your side seams. And I can cut out if I had an edited video. If only my fingers were more agile. I'll tell you what, every time I hit a new century mark, things change in the body so much. And I'm about to turn 61. How did that happen? Oh, my hands are in the way, aren't they? Wrong camera. You go like this. And now you have your cute little cuff. And you can brush the seam now or brush it after, because it will be exposed. And this is why I keep things on sewing. Trade show is where you got yours. The octahoops always had a handle. That's part of the whole concept of the invention. But we have them on our site because people misplace them when they put them somewhere safe so they don't lose them. Now you want to line up the edges of your cuff. Should I show that from the top after failing? So you would sew, and definitely be a better idea to sew these to each other and then sew your side seams. And here it would be better if I had ripped out a few more stitches. Then you fold it. And we want to get these edges lined up and the seam allowances lined up. And this is where you can line up so that they're spread open. And pin into that seam allowance. You trim some of these threads. What did Amy say? She's making one, right, Amy? Are you going to make it today? It's because of Amy I'm doing the stocking. You can blame it on her. I was going to paint fabric today and try to keep it like a spiritual kind of feeling day. Now we take the stocking with right side out. And you can see that stacking right sides together of the lining, right sides together of the outer stocking, sewing all the way around. Now the lining is attached and it's not going to slip and slide. This is actually another way of constructing a bag. It's also a way of putting in sleeves. And we're going to line up the side seam with the side seam. But before doing that, we need to put the loop-de-loop in here. I don't remember what you guys said, if you guys ever voted. Did you vote on black for the strap? It is weird, me sewing with pins. Definitely. But in this case, and when you want to line up a seam on the top with a seam on the bottom, a pin is your best option so that you know that you are lined up in the seam and in the seam. And then we're going to take this pin out and insert it here. Then when the pin's anchoring it, you can glue or use clips and pull those pins out. But this is just to keep all these 4 layers with extra thicknesses together. It's also a way of doing fussy cutting and lining up flowers. You have layers of fabric and they all have the same print, and you want to make sure that the print is laid in the exact same spot on all of the layers, where you take the pin and you poke it through in a spot and line up. You can spin your fabrics around and get them all in line. So it's one of the times when a pin just comes in really handy. So spreading the stocking out like that and lining it up, but this is where we want to put our tab to hang the stocking, and need to think that through. Where does that need to be? It needs to be in here, because this will be out here. So we need the stocking tab to be in the seam allowance. But we want it to be out here. So I'm going to stop for a minute, set this aside, and make the loop. And I'm going to use this because, oh, you guys wanted red? 1 black, 3 reds. Majority rules. I'm so sleepy. Oh my goodness. I don't think I've ever yawned on this show before. This is really just a scrappy kind of thing. Got a big bolt of fabric here. That's why I'm cutting it the way I did. Oh man, being sleepy. I hope I'm not getting something right before Christmas. That would be a bummer. I wish my daughter was going to be here for Christmas. I put it where I like it to be. I'm doing things a little different with this new camera. And I closed a thing that I don't close anymore, that I used to close. All right. I'm just going to make it as straight as I can, because this is, as you know, not that critical. Whoop. And it's really up to you how wide you make it. I would say if you're going to make it out of a thicker material, you should have a wider cut. This is going to be 1.5 inches. And I could go through the trouble of doing a tube turn style, or just fold it over and fold it over. And with the presser and the liquid base glue to hold it in place, this is my option, or this is what I think is going to be my quickest process. What time is it? Have I run too long? Is that what's going on? Because I'm sleepy. Then you fold it again into that. So did you get that? You fold it in half, and then you bring one end to the edge of that crease, and then press. And then we'll just glue it and stitch it. Since I feel like flexibility would be really important on this. The only thing that would be better would be an orange one, huh? Except for not for this project. Ellen's the only one with an orange presser, because I had a piece of orange wood and I was able to make one for her, but we never had that on our site as an option. So now you glue that flap down, fold it over, and we'll reapply some glue again, and you can center that fold. It's easier for the glue to stay put if you clip it. You could also use bias tape if you have some. It doesn't need to be very long. I made this way longer than necessary. And this down. I got real quiet, didn't I? I think that's a record for how long I was quiet. Except for when my microphone wasn't turned on because I made a mistake. Now you could do something fun. You could stitch with rat tail cording on this. I'm just going to use the satin edge foot and do a top stitch instead. Simply because I've already shown that, and we need to end this video, don't we? Now my goal is to get the stitch to go really close to this folded edge, and that will stitch down the other side of that and both sides of this. Move the guide over to the needle and the needle over to the guide. So So you have a wide variety of different positions or distances to sew away from something. And then before you start sewing, you check with your hand wheel to make sure it's where you want it. And then, as always, with all the creative feet, you watch in front of the foot, not the needle. And in the case of the satinized foot, you push toward the guide and it pushes back the other way. Which is why I don't need to move my hand while sewing. Now if you want it to look the same and you want to have 2 rows of stitching, if you really want to get into the details, well, I generally am that way. Then you can measure the distance that is away from that side and move the guide and the needle that distance away so you have equally spaced apart rows of stitching. Whoopsie. Oh, look at that. That's never happened before in my life. Huh. That was intriguing. Don't let go before you're at the end. But it's fine. That's so funny. Okay, so now I'm going to have right sides facing out and insert this into the stocking. These kind of projects do mess with your brain, so if you get confused, now you can feel better about it. This is where the tab needs to be coming out of the stocking from the inside. So we want to do this. And I should decide how long this needs to be. Too many long threads. May as well just glue this puppy closed. Whoops, I didn't push down. And when you do, you want to do it very light. And wait for it to dry would even be better. We want this to end up being on the outside. That's what I want, right? Yep. But I'm going to jog it back so that it's not lined up with that seam, because that's extra thickness and it'll also encourage it. So this, because this is now going to go in here. Thank you, God, for giving me the presence of mind to know what I was doing that time. Okay, so at this stage, if you make the bigger version of the stocking, you can use your free arm, but this is too small. As was Tinkerbell's little sweatshirt that I made. So if you want to make a dog's minky sweatshirt, which she absolutely loved. It was the first and only outfit she didn't mind wearing. She would usually like run away. I think it's because it's fur on fur. And all I'm doing now is trying to line up the other side seam. This would be easier to glue the whole cuff together all the way around before pinning it in here. And then I'm going to use the pearls and piping foot to go around. You could use a traditional foot on your machine for this, but I wouldn't recommend the satin edge foot for this. It's too much going on. And I'm also not going to start on a side seam. I'm going to start on the back mid area using a long stitch length. And sewing with the inside of the stocking facing up. I'm almost asleep. It's too late for any orders to go out today because I ran long. But I am going to be shipping tomorrow, and that's the last day to have any chance of any product arriving for Christmas presents. Know that we have gift certificates should you want to have something to print and put in a stocking. So this is what I mean by if I glued these two together, that would keep them from slipping. I'm not going to tie a knot because I want to know that I've done it right before I do. I'm going to keep my eye on this pin. And you have to like fiddle with it. I forgot to lengthen the stitch length. I'm going to do it now. Take it all the way to 5. Especially on the bump. It will then pull it through for you. And you go slow on the bumps. Because the foot is tipping and it's just safer to just go slow. The needle's going through a lot. Ow. It wouldn't be a day with pins without poking myself. Lower the needle. Now I can lift. Looking here, trying to line up all those edges. The nice thing about the pearls and piping foot is that it kind of keeps you right on the edge in the same distance. So my focus is able to be on the fabric, lining them up, rather than on the foot and its position. Almost done. And I'm going to take that pin out. But I have my finger on the seam, keeping it, all those layers together. Now if you get to the point where it just won't feed, you can take a pack of needles, lower the needle, lift the foot, slide a pack of needles behind the foot, and then lower your foot again. And it'll spit those needles right out after it starts to feed and get you up and over the bump. Now we got a lot of raw edges here. But before I finish it with an overcasting stitch, I'm going to make sure that I caught it all. Ta-da! Look at that. Success. And then you could just stitch around in the inside of that seam with a zigzag stitch. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Schwanza. I should stop because I don't know all of them. Happy whatever holiday you celebrate during this time of love and gratitude and caring and sharing. I really think this would be a great little wine bottle delivery or gift wrap. If you like this video and you stuck with me up till now, well, thank you so much for doing that, and hit that like button on your way out as well, because this is live right now, and this is December 21st of 2023. If you're watching after that day, then you're watching on the replay, and you're welcome to put comments in the comment section, which I do monitor as best I can with all that I do. And be sure to join my online school, createwithclairerowley.com, where I get to know you better and you get to know me better. And feel free to ask questions in there, because that's the whole point of it, is a community where you can have access to me and one another more. And I'm trying to figure out how to do this without forgetting to go off, without forgetting to stop the stream. I did that a couple of weeks back. I did it actually twice in a month. So I love you guys so much, and I appreciate you. Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas. And if I don't see you before 2024 live, I'll likely upload something, but maybe not. I might actually take a week off. I'm feeling like I need it. Love you. Bye. That's what's wrong. I gotta move this button. That's what's wrong. All right. So, take two. Love you. Bye.